Welcome to Success Stories. I'm Serious Voice. I always feel bad on MLK Day because we've got to work. Let's just face it, we're workaholics in America. I feel like we should all be home celebrating MLK Day, watching the I Have a Dream speech, and also strategizing on how we can add to his legacy. Just keep it moving. I also feel blacks should get paid triple on MLK Day. Speaking of which, what about FIFA and them not paying the women what they deserve? I mean, how many jobs have females who make more money for the companies, they draw more publicity, but get paid less? Shout out to all the CEOs out there. Now we're talking about money. What is it with people feeling like they could use their birthdays, anniversaries, their hookups to get money through an app? Back in the days, my parents used to say, hey, you've got to get a job and work for everything. I had to work for my first car. I had to work for my first bike. I had to work for everything. Now these days, you could just hit your friends up through the Cash App and say, hey, I can afford the salad, but I can't afford the croutons and the avocado. And just respond with a sad emoji, and guess what? Everybody's gonna send money to your Cash App. Welcome to America. Today we have a great show. We have Ttillman, who's a motivational speaker, life coach on the show. We got a dope mix from your resident DJ, Mr. C, and of course you got me. Keep it right here.
We in the same boat. We are all alike, but I refuse to stop here. Going on for my life. My fists are pumping in the air like I'm Mike Tyson. And no amount of pain, and no, I won't take my life. You can't stop this flow. Success is knocking at my toe. Stronger now, I'm ready now to walk through that door. My next is coming soon. Don't try to block the flow. You ain't no ordinary. Call yourself extraordinary. Woo!
Welcome to Success Stories. I'm Serious Voice. Today I have a special guest right here from New York City. His name is Ttillman. He goes by the tagline, T-Till Inspires, and that's what he does. He inspires. He's the founder and CEO of Ttillman Unlimited LLC, a certified life coach, empowerment speaker, mental and emotional wellness advocate, and so much more. This young man wears a lot of hats, and I'm proud to say he's also a good friend of mine. Welcome to Success Stories.
Thank you. Appreciate that lovely introduction. Thank you so much. Appreciate
You're welcome. Of course, I've got to do my people right.
Absolutely.
Wow. If someone were to take a gander at all of your social media accounts, you're always posting inspiring quotes, motivational quotes. Where did that start?
That started for me when I was in high school. I was the person that everybody went to for advice. All my friends, they always came to me and just wanted to talk. I would talk to people on the phone for 3 or 4 hours, things like that. But when you're young, you just think that's something that you just do, So I was always just that person. But it really didn't develop until I was about maybe 27 years old.
Okay.
And then, like everybody else, or a lot of people, tragedy kind of brings forth, some blessings. So that's when I decided to go this route into T-Till Inspires around 2015. And I kind of birthed that, and I became a certified life coach and things like that. So, yeah, came full circle.
That's pretty cool. Not a lot of, young people in your age group seek to give back in such a way. Right. Is this something that you saw happening in your home, around you? What was the motivation?
Yeah, so growing up, my mom was like the resident mother of the neighborhood. So all of my friends would go to her for advice, and I would see her, go to people in malls and on the street. Like, they would all go to her, and like she would stop and talk to people and just give them a word and advice, either just on a human level or even on a Christian level, right?
Okay.
So I've always seen that growing up, Then also I saw my dad. He was the kind of like the neighborhood father,
Okay.
And he would always go back and forth and take my friends to their games and just things like that. So he was always a help to people, too. So between the both of them, I had great examples. And so growing up for me, I mean, it was just kind of easy.
And what have you said to your wife, with the rash of police brutality incidents being showcased on the news, and we're all talking about it over the past year. So many different instances, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd.
Yeah.
What did you tell your wife?
Well, I just told her it's okay to feel. I think that's the one thing for us. Sometimes it's like it's not okay for us to feel something. It's not okay for us to grieve these things. Like we have to always keep chugging ahead. But for her, I said, like you're working 60 hours a week. I said, and then you turn on the TV, you see George Floyd, you see Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. I said it's always in your face 24/7. And then there's the pandemic.
Right.
Things like that. You have to wear masks everywhere. So I said the one thing I said, it's okay to feel these things. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve daily. I mean, because that's truthfully what we do. People are losing jobs. And sometimes people feel guilty for even having jobs while other people are losing jobs.
Right.
I just said, so I said, just for her, I just said, you know what, whenever you need, I said, just grieve. I said, if you need to talk, I said, if you need to cry, I said, if you need to just a shoulder to lean on, I said, I'm here for you. I just think that just to have somebody in the house that's there for you 24/7, 365 for whatever it is that you need on an emotional level, not just financial, but to me, being a provider in the home is not just financial. It's mental, emotional, and spiritual too. So I just let her know that I'm there for her in that way as well.
That's big, because I think a lot of us females need that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the community needs that.
Right.
We need to have that in the home where we can vent and cry and, like you said, grieve, because when I saw the various footages and read the news stories and whatnot, for me as a black woman, I said, hey, that could have been me.
Could have been.
That could have been me in my house.
Easy.
I could have been Breonna Taylor. And my husband could have been an Ahmaud Arbery, and it's crazy, because at that time when that incident happened with Ahmaud, I had been preparing for the New York City Marathon. And I'd get up early, 6 a.m. to go jogging and do all this stuff in a predominantly Caucasian community, which is where I live. And it hits you in that way, and you're like, you know what? I'm so appreciative that I woke up this morning. Every day, I thank God for waking up, but then I also say, well, what can I do to encourage a young person who just graduated, and they're thinking, well, yeah, I'm going to advance, I'm going to go after my dreams, I'm going to achieve certain things, and then you hear about another person within the community dying. I know that you go out often and you speak to young people. What is your message these days?
Well, I mean, due to COVID, I haven't been out since COVID, but pre-COVID, I think my message to the youth was that no matter what happens, like, you mean something, like, you matter. Your message matters, and you guys have messages. Despite what, politicians or the world thinks about you, like, you have a word, you have a message, and your life matters. And I've been saying that from, years since I started, speaking at colleges and speaking at kids, to kids, and going to schools and things like that. That's been my message, is that no matter what they tell you, no matter what your guidance counselor tells you, teacher tells you, like, you mean something, and your goals mean something, and you can achieve anything that you want to achieve if you truly put your mind to it. And that's cliche, but it's so true. My guidance counselor told me when I was in the 8th grade that I couldn't get into the high school that I really wanted to get into.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he told me that, and he was just like, you're not that material.
Wow.
And he told my mom that, maybe you should think about maybe sending him to maybe one of those inner city schools, like, and he said those things, and my mom was like, yeah, absolutely not, and she was bold in what she felt, that I could do, and long story short, I went to the school that I really wanted to go to, and, the rest is history. But these are the people that's teaching our kids, what I'm saying? These are the people that's supposed to be a guidance counselor and counseling our kids. Like, you don't know what they're saying to these kids.
But when I was a freshman, I wanted to start taking my internships right off because I'm one of these crazy ambitious, I'm graduating in 2 years type of deal. So, and I graduated within 3 years because, I planned my courses out and everything. But that freshman year, I started to apply to internships, and I remember the dean of the school saying, this is not how you do it. You wait until you're a junior to apply. And he just he started berating me and all this stuff. And I said, never mind what you've got to say. I'm applying for my internships, and that's what I did. because I really did not know what discipline in media I wanted to go into, whether it be print, TV, radio, etc. So I said, well, maybe I should start early so that I could have a better sense of exactly where I want to be, within 3 years.
Right.
And thank God I didn't listen to him. Because if I had waited, then I probably, would have been not doing what I enjoy doing now. So, and I'm glad that your mom didn't take the advice of that counselor as well.
Right.
Because within the Black and brown communities, we have to go against the grain. Because oftentimes, we're being put down. See, every boy and girl learns differently. This is another thing that I understood over the years, that some kids, they learn visually. While others, they'll read a book and you just tell them once and they just catch on. So and some people, you've got to go over the story over and over again for them to get it. That doesn't mean that they're less intelligent than the other children.
That's so true.
So, within the community, we do have to do these checkups regularly. We got to talk to the guidance counselors. And I hate to say it, 9 times out of 10, the guidance counselors within these minority school districts, it's either they're for the advancement of the young people or they're against it. Right. There's never an in-between. And so I'm really glad that your mom press forward and you were able to get the kind of education that you needed. But we definitely need people like yourself, motivational speaker, empowerment coach within the community that can speak to the children, because a lot of times it's just about the way they're being taught. Right. It's not that they're dumb. Right. But then, within the community, it's like, well, if you're not getting above 90, you're stupid, you're an idiot. How do you speak to these boys and girls about things like that?
Well, to me, it's like you said, everybody learns differently.
Right.
I grew up also with a speech impediment too. So I learned differently. Like, my anxiety was through the roof reading in class, because I knew from the age of kindergarten, since the grade kindergarten through college, I had this thing that made me kind of not really want to really participate in certain classes, in certain activities, right? Okay. Projects, right? And that affected the way that I thought of how smart I was and things like that. Because when you have a speech impediment first, it's like, it's anxiety driven, right? So it's like, so whenever somebody would say, hey, Terrence, can you read this out loud? My anxiety would cave in and I would be like, oh my God. And I would like literally sweat in the back of my neck, because I knew that I would mess up at some point, right? So I think, for me, going through those experiences through elementary school, high school, and college, and having those impediments, I said, you know what? I want to tell the kids too that no matter what type of maybe learning disability that they have, it's okay. Everybody learns in different ways. And just because something might be going on with you that may stop you from learning like everybody else or like the average person, it's okay, because you can still press through it and you can still learn, achieve, and be educated like everybody else.
Why would you say your job is important to the Black and brown communities?
For me, being a coach and being a speaker, I think everybody needs a mentor and everybody needs a coach. And even at some point, even a therapist, especially in the Black community. We go through many things daily, and I think that it's very important for us to unpack our traumas too, at an early age. I think a lot of times we wait until we're 35 or 30s and 40s to try to unpack 30 years worth of trauma.
Right.
And by that time, you might be married, you have kids. And so those things are on the back burner, and then you don't, but then you pass on those same traumas to your children.
Right.
And it's a generational thing. So for me, I focus on really unpacking, what goes on with you, right? And unpacking those generational traumas and maybe teaching a different way of looking at life. I think that we live in an Amazon generation, but we've been teaching Toys R Us values, and Toys R Us is out of business. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of stuff that from the old school is not really necessarily relevant today. So we got to teach our boys differently. We got to teach our girls differently. So that's kind of, to me, why I think it's important, the work that I do, because I do bring something different, a different message, to the males and women too.
And for our viewers, I have to stress this and point this out. when you see Mr. Ttillman at an event, he's never wearing a hoodie. He's representing for his show today, Conversations of the Heart with T. Till. But when you see him at an event, he is completely decked out, looking like, he belongs on the front cover of a GQ magazine. He's usually wearing a very nice suit, the tie, everything, cufflinks, everything. But he's like COVID ready. Yeah, he's like
COVID beard, hair.
Everything. But I just wanted to point that out. To whom do you attribute your success?
First, I would, my parents. I think, without them and their example, I wouldn't be where I am right now. But it's funny, whenever I tell my mom that, she always goes, "You're right, but you know that when you were 8 years old, you prayed for wisdom." And she was like, "So yes, it's because of, obviously the examples that we've set for you, but you also prayed for wisdom when you were 8 years old." And I remember that as a mother. So it's the words that you sent up. And so I was just like, wow, I don't really, sometimes at 8 years, you don't think about the things that maybe you prayed about when you were 8 years old.
Right.
But she remembers.
That's awesome. I think that within the community, oftentimes we don't look to get counseling. Mm-hmm. We don't look to, bring in a coach like yourself, a life coach or a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of us within the community, we've gone through some traumatic things like you mentioned before, and it sort of forces us to behave in a kind of hard way, towards our family members, our friends, even our co-workers. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes you wonder why a person yells and why they just don't have any compassion. Mm-hmm. And it's because they had that one particular traumatic experience, and it's caused them to be this hard individual. And it's kind of like it's kind of taboo. Oh, you're seeing a therapist? Mm-hmm. Black people don't do that. Nope. It's you say therapy, and it's like and they automatically think it's some place you go to hang out. Mm-hmm. It's not you're gonna sit down and talk about your feelings, because we don't do this within the community. Mm-hmm. But we have to stop and retrain. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And if you look at the technical definition of mental health and mental wellness, it's really the ability to be able to handle the normal stresses of life, right? And to be able to go about your day and work, right? And be, an upstanding person in your community. That's more like the technical term, right? But to be honest with you, when you look at Black people, right? Honestly, let's be honest, we don't really have normal stresses of life. So what normal stresses of life is, it's 9 to 5, you go to work, you come home, you have dinner on the table for your kids or whatever the case, or just for yourself. Well, Black people have already started in the red. So where has our mental health been from the start? Our mental health starts in the negative already.
Hey yo, shout out to the JA, the GT, the TNT. I got a little bit of a reggae mix for you right here on Success Stories, a Serious Voice. Your man Mr. C about to blast off. Let's get the party going.
Every second, minute, every hour, Jesus, I worship you with all my heart. Jesus, I worship you. Every second, minute, every hour, Jesus, I worship you with all my heart. 'Tis so sweet to be loved by you, unconditional love that's true. You could have taken another path instead of the cruel rugged cross. Still I give your life for me. When I died at Calvary, give me life more abundantly. Yeah, hey. Every day I'm about to praise you. Yeah, every day I'm about to serve you. Yeah, for life I'm sold out to you. Jesus, I worship you. Every second, minute, every hour, Jesus, I worship you with all my heart.
Dwayne Walters, I worship.
Jesus, I worship you.
Yes.
Every second,
bless it.
Minute, every hour, Jesus, I worship you with all my heart. The heavens declare glory, the firmament Lord, you are worthy. Lord, you are worthy. No one before thee. Jesus, I worship you. Every second, minute, every hour. Jesus, I worship you with all my heart. Jesus, I worship you. Every second, minute, every hour. Jesus, I worship you with all my heart.
Monty G. Back on my feet again. That's what God'll do for you.
I'm gonna break these chains around me, and I'm gonna learn to fly again. Maybe hard, but I'll do it. When I'm back on my feet again, so be still, we'll all be trying. Soon these eyes will see the sun. Might take time, but I'll see it. And I'm back on my feet again. When I'm back on my feet again, I walk round down that street again, and they'll all look at me again, and they'll see that I'm stronger now. Yes, they'll see that I'm stronger now. The children laughing.
Oh yeah, hope you're enjoying this one right here.
Their voices sing.
Yes.
Won't be long.
Really bless you. Your man Mr. C at work for you. DJ on deck.
When I'm back on my feet again, gonna feel the sweet light of heaven shining down its light on me. Oh, one sweet day, I will feel it when I'm back on my feet again. When I'm back on my feet again, I walk round down the street again, and then all look at me again, and they'll see that I'm stronger now.
Watch me.
See that I'm stronger now.
Jason Mighty. Can't walk alone. I need God's help. I know you do too.
I
Yeah.
can't walk this life alone. I can't make it on my own. Can't walk this life alone. 'Cause I know I'm gonna fall. I can't walk this life alone. God knows I made too much mistakes. Can't walk this life alone. Please, Jesus, rescue.
Ttillman, we tell them to save their soul, and they run the same goal, and make the devil take control. This is a part of the story that never been told.
That's why we tell them, say, live the life you love and give the praise to the Father up above.
Until the men march and run and they grab it, sir.
Dust in the wind, all we are is dust in the
Praise to the King,
wind.
while you living. Almighty God is my King of all kings.
Dust in the wind, all we are is dust in the wind.
Live the life you love and love the life that you live. Praise is an offering we come to give.
Father love the world, he gave his only son, just to save this world, he make him blood run. You can't blow bread, so no matter take none. Make we unite now and have some fun. No matter with the first thing, no matter with the fight. God too wrong, God can't make right. Make we live right in the Almighty side. Matter if you're black, brown, yellow or
I have a
white.
dream, like Martin Luther King, overcome, like you said, both me win. Live the life you love and love the life you live in. The house and the land and the car and the bling. Me come with nothing, me gain everything. But still me have to give all the praise to the King. Cause when man dead, him can't care nothing. That's why me I tell a man a dust in the wind.
Dust in the wind, all we are is dust in the
Praise to the King,
wind.
while you living. Almighty God is my King of all kings.
Dust in the wind, all we are is dust in the wind.
Live the life you love and love the life that you live. Praise is an offering we come to give. Hands up, for me know you're righteous. In everything Almighty come first. In the Almighty Father, you put your trust. Don't wait until you bite the dust. Stay conscious, don't lose your focus. It don't even matter if you're religious. Remember, Father God made you for a purpose. We have to serve God and you know that's a must.
Use up the things that you got. Don't worry about the things you have not. See that? Your pants, shirt and your hat. Don't bother falling a Satan trap. Want it, him can't get it. And get it, him no want it. Open up your eyes and face reality. And give all the praise to the Almighty. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.
While you living, Almighty God is a king of all kings.
Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.
Live the life you love and love the life that you live. Praise is an offering we come to give. Father love the world, he gave his only son. Just to set this world in, make him not run. You can't blow bread, so no matter take none. Make we unite now and have some fun. No matter with the first thing, no matter with the fight. Got to wrong that can't make right. Make we liberate in the Almighty side. Matter if I'm black, brown, yellow or white.
I have a dream, like Martin Luther King. Overcome, like you said, both me win. Live the life you love and love the life you live in. The house and the land and the car and the bling. Me come with nothing, me gain everything. But still me have to give all the praise to the king. Cause when man dead, him can't nothing. That's why me I tell him I'm not dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind. Dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.